Indian Ophthalmology and Practice Go. So, you all have the sheets, so we'll straight away get to it. Dr. Roy Shetty is the first speaker, but he sent a message that he'll be coming a little later. He's in the IC. Dr. Lalit Verma is not here. So we'll get Dr. Reena Sethi. Please get the slides ready. Who else has a flight to speak early? Okay. So you have a flight? Okay. So we'll get Dr. Reena Sethi to present. Our topic is managing private practice with community eye care.
A very good morning to all. Not everybody gets the privilege of doing community work along with their private practice. And here I'm going to just give a little presentation of how we are doing it and what exactly drives one to do something like this. Because every time you talk about this and people want to know why should you be doing so much of charitable work and is it beneficial or not. So basically, whenever we are practicing, we need to keep a little bit of a balance, like that's what we are trying to do, and that is between your private practice and your community work. And why is that so? That's because we have two reflections in our purpose. And as medical doctors, as people who are there to do work for the people who come to us, we must have a passion, and the passion is for your work, for your profession. And with additionally in our profession, what is also available and what is with us is the compassion part. So just to nurture the compassion part, because if you are only in a private practice, then you cannot do work for just everybody and people who are also under, you're not going to be paying and all that, because so many dimensions come into the whole thing. But we, in the line of working, we just lose this compassion. So just to keep this passion and compassion balance, I think it's very important to also have work doing in the community. And as professionals, we have our clinical approach, and also there is the public health approach. So, which is very different, because in a public health approach, we need to also cover aspects of prevention, because that's what we don't do when we are doing our clinical. We just do and we treat a disease. So there it is. And what is the bottom line is that we have to keep the balance of profit and not for profit. Because if we can do that, then we can make our work more sustainable. And that is the way to go about it. How do they complement each other? Because that's what we must know. Because only if we understand how they would be complementing, that we'll take this step forward and try and get community work also going along with our private work. Community eye health complements clinical ophthalmology knowledge. The diaspora of various diseases and of various ailments which you see in the community as a community ophthalmologist is far, far wide as compared to what you will see in your private practice. These cases are more challenging to handle, and they always enhance your ability to do more surgically as well as clinically also. So it's very important to have this balance of a community ophthalmologist work as well. And ophthalmologists are clinically trained to diagnose and treat disease. The concept of disease prevention at the patient level and to a greater extent at the population level is what you do when you are doing work in the community, and you also are pursuing your Vision 2020 objectives. Community eye health, if you are into this community work, you also go through these epidemiological research, eye health promotion. So this is more on a prevention level as well. It's just not crunching numbers, but you're interacting with the population. You're seeing what exactly is the prevalence of the disease and how you're going to be encountering or preventing this disease. And how does it help us as professionals? This helps you in identifying the main cause of blindness and low vision in your own community, which is very important, and implement appropriate strategies to reduce barriers to eye services, provide equitable services for prevention and therapy. Now, all this vision comes with the place you have trained, because that is really very important, because those are your formative years, and a good residency program in an institute which is going to give you this direction is very important, because when you are working in places like Arvind Eye Hospital, LV Prasad, you get this kind of a vision which drives you towards community ophthalmology whenever you're doing your fellowship, or even if you go for an observership program, and not just ophthalmology in the clinical sense. What is it that you do more as in your community ophthalmology practice? You are going for more eye care camps, which are in villages, schools. There's no difference in services offered to the paid and the free section. That is the bottom line of how you're going to have more and more people coming in your community section as well. Value inculcated during the training is what creates that vision. Now, what are the pros and cons? Why should you be doing this? The pros are, there's never a day without an interesting case. And end of the day, there is satisfaction. Fulfill your passion with compassion, and reaching the people who you actually cannot reach to, reaching the unreached. And from a marketing head to a maid, everybody you can treat under that same banner, and everyone goes back happy. And what are the cons? The fear that the paying patient won't avail your services. Actually, that's not that happens. It's just the opposite, because when people who are coming, even in your paid section, realize your vision, they understand why you're doing it, they become partners. We've had a lot of people who've come and they've actually become volunteers in the way we are holding camps and all that. This is our hospital, and we have a cross-subsidy model where 70% of our work is for the outreach, and the balance 30% is for the paid, which helps to cross-subsidize these underprivileged. And these are few pictures of how we go into villages. And what we studied is that, what we've seen is that in our villages, we see more women who are coming to the eye camps as compared to the men. So really, it's empowering them as well. And the objectives are always awareness building and patient sensitization, our pre-campaign, campaigning, training of the local volunteers, conducting comprehensive eye care, giving glasses and medicines, and referrals and surgeries are brought to the base hospital. And what is very important is the education and the prevention aspect. So we've adopted 68 villages around our hospital. And our very strong work is also in school screening program. We've reached out up to almost 45,000 students, and the training of teachers, conducting pediatric eye care camps, and glass distribution. And those who are have any problems with amblyopia or others, squints, they are then referred back and imparting education to these children. So these are the government schools which we have undertaken. And the schools covered have been 98 till date, and we almost now, I think we just upgraded, so almost 45,000 children, because every day we are doing a school screening whenever the schools are open, and every child is given 2 pairs of glasses of their choice. I think that is very important. And we go back 6 months later to see whether the children are doing well or they're following up or not. So we're also covering a primary health centers in Gurgaon. And we also are doing a lot of ROP screening program, where the team of the vitreoretinal specialists go into the civil hospital and the NICUs and do their work. So the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. Thank you so much.
Dr. Reena, in the outset, I'd like to thank Dr. Lalit Verma for allowing us to organize this program, because doctors today are, in social media, not the best of positive publicity. And with the corporate hospitals and all coming up, the vision that the patients have is that the doctors are more, like my boss used to joke in physicians, that you auscultate the purse before you auscultate the heart. So, it's becoming a game of money because there's so much of investment. But there also is a balance, and we doctors have to show the human side of it. So I would request Mr. Adi Tulsiraj, the head of the eye care system, who's LICO, to please come on the podium and give us his comments of this perspective, because he was the one in Arvind who motivated us to a large extent to do our community work and practice together. When we were, I'm the second fellow of Dr. Nachyar, so I spent more time with him than with Dr. Nachyar, and got into trouble, but that's a different story. So how did the Arvind vision get translated for other ophthalmologists to be practically be able to implement it? Would be of interest, because most of us want to do it, but how to do it is this. And then the next speaker is Dr. Lalit Verma, who will be speaking on solo versus group practice.
I don't have a presentation, and yet I'd like to share some of my thoughts. So whenever we get into an activity, we tend to focus a lot on a few things, which is largely around inputs. Inputs in the sense it could be finding the best people, right technology, putting up the right kind of a building. And oftentimes it's very much like putting a bunch of hardware together. And oftentimes we don't recognize the importance of making them all work together, because we believe it will all work, it will all fall in place and it will all work fine. That's the assumption that we have. So what makes it all work very well is a very deeply and well thought through operating system which has to fall in place, and recognizing that in our line of work, which is a service industry where we provide care to the people and it's done by the people, all these inputs become only a tool by which the care gets delivered. And so one can recognize the complexity of the whole process that needs to fall in place, because we need to intersect two things with a very delicate balance. One is the the rules and the systems and the processes that you put in place, which is required to keep anything going. But at the same time, there's also got to be a very deep understanding of the purpose of why those rules have come into place and then how they play out. And when that doesn't happen, what really happens is you have a very bureaucratic process which is very patient, non-centric, and wherein you just play it by the rules. Oh, it's time is so and so, can't see you, or and that will become the culture of the organization, and that really undermines everything. But at the same time, you also don't want to go completely overboard on the soft side. So finding the right balance wherein you have to have some sanity in the organization, at the same time you need to have a lot of effectiveness in what happens. And this becomes the crux of the practice management. And there is a lot of proactiveness that is involved in this. From, like for example, everyone talks about patient-centered care, because we recognize the experience matters as much as the clinical outcome. But I don't think many of us can decode what a patient-centric care really means. But everybody will say, we do patient-centric care. We have nice chairs, we have good air conditioning. And I don't think it's only about that. I mean, they are part of it. So, allowing things to happen unconsciously, not knowing that cause and effect, it's almost like doing cataract surgery without knowing the role of incision, the role of rhexis, or the role of cortex cleaning. If you have no idea what it means, and you say, I'll do something and something good will happen. So I think we need to move towards a little better understanding of the cause and effect process in the management side. Because ultimately, I think what really distinguishes a successful practice from a not successful practice is not really the talent of the doctor. No, it is something, it's what makes the talent blossom. No, it is what makes what brings the best out of people. And the reality is that all of us have to work with mediocre inputs, especially when it comes to human resource. Because educational qualification does not equal to the best of talent. But then if you have the right management process, you can bring out the best in the people. So I think this is a field which is not fully appreciated, and I'm sure when you look around, you will recognize where this has been brought into play in a very conscious manner. Those institutions, those individuals are doing extremely well as an organization or as a physician. So I think that really was the background to this particular session that came up. Thanks, Arun.
Please take a seat on the dais. The take-home message would be that for a private practitioner, Lalit, you can come on the podium. The take-home message is for a private practitioner who would like to do community work at two levels. One for his own spiritual, or you can say for his, the fact that he would like to give back to the community who can't afford. And secondly, he has limited resources and space. Now, what will be your take-home message to them? How could they do it? Because not everybody can build a hospital of scales, you know, that sort of a thing, especially in urban areas. So what would be, if somebody was to come to you, say, from Bombay, he's sitting in Nariman Point. Real estate is expensive, but he would like to do some part of it. What would be your advice to him?
Some part of kind of giving back to the community from that. I mean, to me, community is not necessarily made up of poor people alone. I think there may be some. So it's basically having your processes wherein you're able to, what I would say, marry the practicality of running a practice, with the with an element of spirit of service. So which is where the delicate balance comes in terms of finding the right people to staff it, and then whom do you charge, whom do you give a concession, whom do you so how can that be done without compromising the dignity of the person? Does a person have to come and beg for something, or can it be done with dignity? So these are all design challenges as to how you go about doing it. And it's the same whether it is a private practice or in an institution. I think pretty much remains that way.
I think what you'd like to convey is that everybody should have his own custom-made vision statement when he starts practice. Because you have to value a lot of factors, depends on your resources, depending upon your manpower, depending upon the setups what you have. So I think that's probably one message which you can give is that everybody should make his own vision statement.
They should have a purpose.
And purpose of whatever you're going to do, and then follow the things to the T. I think Lalit is ready to shoot.
Yeah. Thank you, Prashant, and the chairpersons. Often the vision statement, what Prashant was saying, is blurred. I've come across so many people, they may not know what to, especially youngsters. We are not talking of established people, but a lot of these people may not have the direction also. So here comes the role of corporates, or they suck in these people, and like Tushiraj was saying, that you attract talent, talent may not blossom also. I'm happy to be part of this very rich session, going by the sheer numbers of and the quality and type of faculty which Arun Shetty has got, right from Arvind Eye Care System, and there's so many rich topics here and huge panel of 20 people. The only thing bad I'm feeling is the timing of this session, the day of this session. Otherwise, this could have blossomed into a very nice Hall A full session also. What I've been asked to talk about is solo versus group. I came into practice nearly a decade back. I was always a part of RP Center group for more than 2.5 decades there, then joined this practice. So I'll just share whatever I feel about solo versus group. What I feel is, whatever you do in life, you join anywhere. I'm standing here, there is plus point here and minus point, I'm losing out somewhere else. So everything in life has advantage or disadvantage. There will be plus point, minus point, and argumentation does not lead to anywhere. Will be, you keep arguing, this is plus, minus. But whatever makes you feel happy, the ultimate goal of life is to be happy. To be happy only, and with whatever you work, if it gives you happiness, you do that. Irrespective of whether it is solo or group, like I said, my mission in life is to be happy. If I enjoy doing center site, I will be there. If not, I may start a solo practice. Wherever you are comfortable, people make you comfortable. Coming out from a practice which was, nobody asks you also, it's a secure job. But believe me, practice, whether solo or group, requires a lot of hard work. People may say the other side of grass is always green, that you joined practice because of money, because you wanted more money, therefore you joined. But that may not always be true. At least for me, that was not the main factor. So a lot of hard work is required, a lot of patience is required, a lot of persistence is required. There are established players in the market. Once you set out, you start from zero. That's what I told my mentor, Dr. Tiwari, when he joined practice at the age of nearly 65 years of age. So I told him, sir, today you are junior to me, because practice always have, they start from the game zero. Unless you plan it so well that before retirement you join. It requires a lot of persistence and sacrifice also. You see, you have to sometimes sacrifice a lot of things in life to gain something. And as I said, it is very difficult for a fresher to establish a foothold, especially if you haven't made a big name prior to that. If you are already a big name like Naresh Trihan, so he may not have, he may not take much time. Freshers, even if good, like sir was saying, Dr. Tulsiraj, even if good, will take time. Like I liked his statement very nicely that they have a talent may not blossom until unless they find a right foothold somewhere. So problem of solo practice is you're all alone. Solo I definitely define as a person who has a clinic and a small OT where he is doing his job and he is happy in his own world. But there are some minus points to it, that it's actually a difficult job when so much progress every day, machineries, everything is changing. Often, if you are an ambitious person, you tend to remain mediocre. You cannot afford to buy the latest, and you develop some kind of complex that Dr. Grover has taken flax, I don't have, or whatever, and you keep feeling. So often you remain mediocre, and maybe because of this non-availability of the best kind of machine, maybe that you are not doing justice. Giving vision is okay, that you give good cataract surgery. Even couching used to, rehabilitate those patients at that time. But is that justice in today's world when people come with a lot of Google information and they want to ask you everything? Even they will ask, why are you giving Lucentis in my eye when Eylea is available? Don't you think it is a better drug? What I'm trying to say is, often you can't do justice to your patient. And all these things add to a stress factor. If you are a caring person, yes, there are personalities who don't bother, they keep doing whatever they want. So it adds to a stress factor in life. And then it multiplies. Then you tend to do unnecessary things. Unnecessary procedures, surgeries, clear lens extraction. Cataract surgeons say we are doing refractive surgery, whether cataract or not. The only indication of lens, cataract surgery is lens removal. If lens is there, remove it. And they will psychofy the patient in such a way that, but believe me, internally they are all stressful people. They are not as happy. They will have a plastic smile on their face, but otherwise they are unhappy kind of people. And this I just wrote after listening to Tulsiraj, that the problem of solo is, even though person may be talented, a gold medalist, a topper in his class, or a merit holder, or a certificate from American Academy, but talent may not blossom in a solo practice. It's very difficult because of non-availability of machinery, mediocrity, can't do justice, stress. So even if talented, he will not make a big name. Plus the biggest challenge is this stress. Although all people who operate, who are concerned for the patient, they do have some kind of physiological stress, and which should be there, because that is what keeps you moving. If you, like I also have a lot of stress that 9 o'clock I have to reach, or Arun Shetty will feel bad, so I have to be there. So this is a small amount of stress, leave your breakfast, run. But stress is much more in solo practice compared to group, because there is nothing to pass on. And it eats you out mentally. So further, apart from these factors, in this era when all of us are moving towards westernized kind of medication, that insurance, TPAs, empanelments, NABH, it's very difficult to, although not impossible, to do it in solo practice. Further, consumer court cases you see because of bad mouthing by our colleagues, court cases are rising up. So one endophthalmologist, in this conference I had 2 doctors approaching me, sir, you have to help me out. One of my patients developed endophthalmitis, he has put a case on me for 60 lakhs of rupees, so I'm giving your name in the court. You do whatever. So 2 patients, two doctors. So what I'm saying is, because he is a solo practitioner. Group practice in contrast has a lot of advantages. Because the biggest advantage which I have found when I formed this RMG or retina management group was it's a strong, what we call strong fist. you can then, dictate whatever you want in life. Further, in this era of super specialization, all specialties under one roof, that's what we enjoy at Center for Sight, that if I want a glaucoma referral, we say, okay, we have an opinion, cataract, plasty, neuro, whatever. And cross-referring comorbidities. And sometimes you are stuck in a very difficult case. So here, I don't miss RP Center. Then you can have discussions amongst people that please go and show there so that we can diagnose properly. All this helps in building up patient trust also. Patient does not feel that doctor is, charging me for the heck of it, or private mein paisa bahut lagta hai, whatever. And then the dropout rate is less. This reduces your stress level. Or maybe you share stress. And since volume builds up, experience builds up quite a bit. And because of this, your ability to take up challenging cases builds up. In a solo practice, if you are, happy in your own chamber, it's very difficult to take up a very challenging case. You tend to refer it to, say, Narayan Netralaya. Okay, wahan chale jao. Makkah of ophthalmology, they will do everything for you. Further, because of this, then you can spend some time and energy into teaching, training, which often you pass the middle age of your life. At my age, you enjoy teaching more because you have already peaked. So then you can take part in research, whereas solo practitioner will miss all these things. And then, if you are fond of traveling a lot, you can plan holidays. Further, it gives you a opportunity or balance of two P's in life, that personal and professional. It is very important that family is stable. If not, then it's very difficult to. Because if two P's are not balanced, family side is not balanced, professionally, some people may do well, but generally, professional takes a back seat. So this is what I believe. And quality time for family and children is important for you to enjoy. So you see, these pretty girls look as pretty as these. So whether solo or group, don't look at the other side. Whatever gives you happiness, you should do. I remember peace, happiness and satisfaction in life and good night's sleep is always more important than anything else. And all of us are bound and should be bound, if you are a true doctor and not a quack or whatever, is Hippocratic oath. You have to, because if you don't do that, you will be stressful and you will never sleep properly. Although today there are a lot of options. You see, so many options are there for a fresh fellow or a fresh postgraduate who comes out. He can do so many things. Like sir was saying, the corporates generally suck them out with heavy package, but that comes at a price. Solo, as I said, just to conclude, solo actually is sad in the sense today, for whatever reasons I told, solo cannot ultimately provide all the quality services. And growth and this thing gets limited. Further, he does not have a backup. Whereas group practice, I think, is the king today. Not only of the advantages which I listed before, but can concentrate on a lot of other things and can share the knowledge, whatever he have, with his colleagues, and so that patient gets the best out of it. It gives you more security, it is more satisfying, and ultimately more happiness in life. As I said, I don't care how much I earn, as long as I am happy, satisfied, and have a nice sleep. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Lalit, for a very, very, I would say, thought-provoking talk, because the trend is to go towards group practice with the kind of investments and the limitation of jobs. And it's very interesting that you've been able to do it for so many years. And I think one session should be held by Lalit next time, only on practice management as a separate, symposium sort of a thing, so people could learn a lot of aspects to it. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Lalit. That was a very, very interesting perspective, very well put. The only thing is there may be differences still in smaller towns where setting up groups may not be so easy. However, the trend must shift towards group practices because of the financial constraints involved with the increasing resources that are required. but that perspective will gradually emerge in the smaller towns also, where probably the difficulties of setting up a practice may not be as bad either. But this
Agreed.
perspective will certainly hold true in the future, as it has done in more developed countries.
200%.
But I think at the end of the day, what you put was the best, that one has to exercise one's choice with the knowledge of the pros and cons, and then not look back. Enjoy what you are doing. That, I think, is the message that you get.
200%.
Lalit sir, it was very good presentation. In the past, I think it was the solo practice, but nowadays we have moved to group practice.
Yes, sir.
One thing just to be added, in today's scenario, rather than solo group practice, probably we are moving towards corporate sort of practice. Because of rules and regulations by government and medical councils and Clinical Establishment Act and National Medical Commission, probably as solo practitioner, you are not able to face all these activities.
Sir, within the corporate also you should have a group actually.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if you are a solo in corporate hospital also,
Yeah.
suppose I am working alone in Max or
That's true,
Apollo,
sir. That's
you are doubly stressful actually.
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir.
So therefore, what I would stress is carry your group. Like all this liver transplant surgeon, they move the entire team, or the Trehan move the entire team. So in the corporate also you have to be king, and for that kingship you have to have a group. Like Arun was saying, that like-minded people form a group. Group in Hindi we say mutti, it's a fist. It's so powerful that then it gives you more negotiating power also.
As you mentioned, there are pluses and minuses in everything, and a lot depends upon the doctor's personality. Whether you want to be the leader, have everyone report to you, make the decisions in the office, and now, coming to India, as you know, a lot of the insurance companies, health maintenance organizations that actually feed you the patients, and that could be in group practice or solo practice. Yes, solo practice can be demanding, but if you've got the personality that you want to be the boss and responsible to no one but your patients,
Yes.
and not to a management team elsewhere that runs your life, that you have to apply to go away. Now, I'm in solo practice, and as you know, I come to India a lot. I go to other meetings. I'm able to arrange it with my patients, with my staff, with the coverage from other practices, my friends, and this way, that's me. Other people feel more secure having a lot of interaction with their peers, which I don't have. But I do have it to a certain extent at the medical school of which I'm on faculty. So you have to look at yourself, and you have to look at what the opportunities are, and if you want a group practice, who are the personalities and what do they want from you, and will you obtain your goals?
Correct. You see, I don't disagree with that. So whatever makes you happy, if you can deliver, that's okay. But considering the scenario, solo is more challenging.
I think to round it up, what Dr. Lalit Verma is saying is a group practice is like a marriage, so you have to work on it. Thank you very much. As a matter of fact, now we are going to introduce Dr. Roy Shetty, who needs no introduction. He runs the most well-known Narayan Netralaya, very research-focused in clinical practice, and he's actually brought a dimension outside government hospitals where research is being done in a manner that is internationally recognized. And very few know that he recently got a PhD from the University of Maastricht for his research in keratoconus. And during the panel discussion, we have a very interesting guest here, Mr. Dave. And I happened to have dinner with him last night. I'd like him to stand up. He's come all the way with his wife from Sarasota. And you know, it's very interesting that Lalit, he's by training a marine biologist. And he'll tell you a story in 5 minutes how, because of his love for his wife, he went on to train himself to be a male nurse and optometrist, and worked at none other than at Baylor's in Miami at the VA to be able to do ophthalmology without a degree in America. So things can happen.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. My talk is research a viable option? The reason we have to look at it as a viable option is I heard this from a very close friend of mine when 16, 17 years back. He said that your future is not an extension of your past. So if your future is not an extension of your past and what is happening today, there's absolutely no way what is happening today is going to be the tomorrow. So if you want it to be a viable option, you have to look at it like a viable option. And if you don't have a clear philosophy, why you are doing it. For example, you're doing it just because you get a podium here, a few papers, promotions, etc., etc., etc. There are many, many reasons why you want to do it. If you don't have a clear path, then it's never going to be a viable option. For example, this is what our path was. Viable or not, I think history will tell, because it's impossible to know. It's not like a return on investment in a year or 6 months. It's impossible. That's because I don't know what the denominator is to call it viable. So this is what we thought. We were very curious. A lot of people had to be curious. A curious mind, a group of minds, or like Dr. Lalit sir said, a group of people can have questions. And many questions we don't have an answer. You start looking at an answer, and whatever answer you do become translational, and then that is what it becomes to your clinic, and that's exactly what research is all about. And if you put a denominator as a criteria of success, then for each one you can actually put. You can put for curiosity, questions, answers, papers, how much money you get, how much grant you get, and all these issues. So I'm not going to look at the financial part of it, because if you look at only finance part of it, research is a failure, because it doesn't pay. People don't pay you, and unless you become big grants or you do some big patents and all that, that takes time. I don't think we have reached that stage where, whatever you do, we are reaching that much of financial independence. So till that time, let's look at just as passion, because like I said, a lot of things you don't do. Sometimes you do things without a reason, and that reason you yourself don't know. For me, the reason was question, and personally, we have had at least 4 or 5 PhDs finishing from a clinician point of view, because I told them, all of them need to have this question. I had met a chemistry Nobel laureate. I think he won in 1990s, late 90s or early 2000, and he said a scientist should always ask this when somebody says as smooth as butter, because that is the real way how science will progress. If you just accept it as what it is, then there is no way the science can take forward. There's a lot of areas if you want to look at it as a viable option. So start questioning what is known. There are enough things what is not known. The world is moving towards biomarkers, imaging, clinical, psychometric biomarkers. How do you apply? And then you start looking at the future. This is the way, a circle of how it works. So what really happens is the people who want to look at it as an option, that is, like Dr. Lalit said, you have a clinics. At some point of time, you burn out. You feel it's a melting point. You've done your part. There's nothing more you want to do. You are skilled enough, you've done everything, all the technologies you have is there with you. Then what do you do? So the biggest challenge today, I think he would agree, and a lot of seniors he would agree here, is you get fatigue of doing the same thing again and again. Because you go to OT, it's the same thing, same LASIK, same smile, you don't have anything else to do. And what do? That's where you have to find the magic. If you don't find the magic, at least in today's world, at least 18, 19 years post your busy practice, you're going to fizzle off. I think each one of us are going to do it. And if you don't pick up something, that's why a lot of people in the Western world have different other areas of interest. But I don't know in India how easy it is to just pick up one new art. For example, you become a musician, you play guitar. It is difficult, at least in Bangalore. From my house to the hospital, which is across the road, I take 15, 20 minutes. So there's no point doing anything after that. So the basic algorithm is you choose an area of interest. And once you choose the area of interest, you chase your limits. And you have to add spice to your daily routine. Adding spice to your daily routine is you get awards, you get call, you get patents. And these are the ones which makes you viable. These are the ones which is your denominator. This is my denominator. I mean, each person can have his own ones. Research can be anything. It can be in your own clinic. You don't even need to be a lab. Lab makes it fancy, but it is not the only thing. It can be a clinical or epidemiological work. I think a lot of big hospitals like Arvind, Shankarnath, they all started with basic epidemiological big datas. And that's what made them to reach where they are. And then you can go up to the other ones, you know, if you have access to it. I mean, there is no limit to anything. You can find, if you want something, you will find something there. This is what I tell a lot of my fellows who come to us. There is a search, clinical skill, there is a research, there is award and recognition. You have to do a pizza topping approach on it when you choose your career. So for example, you have to pick up what you want to do, and each one you can actually do it today. Because sometimes it becomes a herd mentality. Okay, my friend did this, I'm going to go to the same place and do it again because he did it very well. What suits your friend may not suit you. You have to pick up a lot. Each one you pick up and you become your pizza topping. For example, somebody say, I just want to do a long term, I want to do my other exams like FRCS, ICO, and I want to do some research. So you narrow it down. You'll find some place which can offer you all this and then make your own secret sauce. There are 5 points I'm going to show what really is a barrier today is always about facilities. But I think the world is changing. If you really look out of your room, of your clinic, you start talking to people, even it is there. There are so many people, so many places which are ready to work, but you have to extend your hand. Lack of knowledge, again, there are a lot of courses today which keeps telling you about courses, good clinical practice, ethical practice, research practice, and even places like Arvind and big institutes are conducting that. And for example, if you don't have a question that research doesn't work, you have to find a question for this. Again, there are online statistical courses which helps you to do that. Lack of access to research finding, this is the biggest problem in our country. We do not have research, online, free access journals. Sometimes this is one of the major reasons many places don't do research, because I want some paper to research, but I don't get it. So unless we find a solution, there are so many senior people here, Grover sir is here. The reason when I did my assessment is, in India, this is the major problem. I don't know whether it's just a reason given not to do, but this is one of the major issues. Lack of time is a big challenge. Again, a lot of us have to do a work after working hours. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of having research off, even in an institution like us, because it is difficult, because your practice where so many things are dependent on a lot of human factors. Time off, so you have to do extra hours to do research. That is one of the major barriers. I'm just looking at, this is not a barrier, but I've just points which we need to look at. Sufficient skills, again, I'm seeing in the last 1 or 2 years, many organizations are coming up with helping them to develop the skills. These are all necessary. If your GPC training, the good clinical practice training, is very important before you start any research. And unless you do that or take a course which you're certified, doing research is going to be risky. I mean, many places do ask you for this. And the most difficult thing is the understanding the jargon of research. I mean, what kind of research you want to plan. So that's why you need to sit and plan with people. Finally, the research is what it connects everything, from biology to mathematics. And there are a lot of areas which is out there which helps to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roy Shetty, for putting light on research. And I think it'll be nice if we could start a portal where people who are research-minded could probably interact with you in similar minds. And a lot of help could come out of the indigenous research that would happen in these little workshops. So we now invite Dr. Roy Shetty. The next speaker is the keynote speaker, Mr. Peter Downs. He's visiting us all the way from Missouri. Mr. Peter Downs represents an organization called Market Scope. And Market Scope is an organization that is known in the United States for advising pharmaceutical companies, ophthalmology corporations and all on how and what and when to intervene in the healthcare system. And they are going to be starting a special survey of Indian ophthalmologists compared to the US ophthalmology, the various parameters. So it'll be very interesting. This is the first time we're having a presentation like this in India. So we invited him and he agreed, and he's come all the way from Missouri, USA. In the meantime, I also request Dr. RDR to please come and occupy a chair in the dais. Please come forward. Dr. RDR, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And I'd like to thank the Shettys for inviting me to launch Market Scope Survey of Indian Ophthalmologists here at the AIOC. That's my, I guess, conflict of interest. I definitely have one. I work for a company that does surveys. So keep that in mind if you listen to what I have to say about this. The survey I'm talking about is, you know, there are lots of different kinds of surveys. This is not market surveys for you on how to get patients, where patients might be. It's not a survey on your clinical results for comparing with other doctors. It's really a kind of a practice patterns survey. MarketScope has done these in the United States for 30 years, and we're launching one in India, kind of, you know, why India and what's in it for you. In the US, doctors use these surveys to benchmark their practice against other people, the same subspecialties, and companies use it as research to figure out what products they should develop that might actually have a market. Doctors who invent new products use them, look at the results to figure out if they're if what they are doing would be popular with other doctors. So here in India, as I have come to these for the last 3 years and traveled around and talked to doctors, I would meet, you know, there are a lot of anecdotes about what people are doing. You know, Dr. Lahan at Sir J.J. Hospital in Mumbai will do 100 cataract surgeries in a day. But, you know, how many surgeons are doing 100 cataract surgeries in a day? And people say, oh, that's a good question. I'll talk to a leading vitreoretinal specialist here in India and ask them, well, how many people are doing vitrectomies in India? And how many vitrectomies are being done? Oh, good questions. Talk to the glaucoma specialist. You know, how many people are actually doing trabeculectomies? Oh, good question. So one benefit of a survey of kind of the profession is to see kind of what's being done across the country and how many people are doing it. It's a way, again, as in the US, to benchmark what you're doing, your volume and your diagnoses, the type of patients you get, with other doctors across the country. And another reason, of course, is companies, kind of Western companies, are waking up to the fact that the whole world is not an extension of the US or Germany, that there are differences in different parts of the world. And they're interested in figuring out how practice differs so that they can gear their products to really be useful to people in different parts of the world. Here's an example from the United States. Adoption of Smile. Smile was just approved in the United States last year. I know you've had it here in India for several years. And now after, this is from the third quarter of 2017, so after a year, you see 17% of refractive surgeons in the US offer or plan to offer Smile. And that has actually started after 10 years of falling refractive surgery. That has actually seem to have stabilized and maybe actually starting to increase refractive surgery in the US. Another thing that is very popular in the US, and I understand probably doesn't have a role here in India, is MIGS. Or as some of you, depending on who you talk to, either minimally invasive glaucoma surgery, micro-incisional glaucoma surgery, or minimally effective glaucoma surgery, depending on your point of view. But it has become very popular in the US. And here we have an example of, let's see, on the left is cataract surgeons. You see what is about 57% offer or plan to offer combined cataract glaucoma surgery with MIGS. And glaucoma surgeons, 66% offer combined cataract glaucoma surgery with MIGS. And one issue that raises particularly for the cataract surgeons, as the glaucoma surgeons like to say, is that glaucoma patients are a very different type of patient from cataract patients. So the practice management has to be different. Cataract surgeons are used to, they see a patient, they perform the surgery, after a couple of weeks or a month, they wave bye-bye, and they never see that patient again, and they don't have to worry about it, usually. For glaucoma surgeons, after you do the surgery, you have a lifelong commitment to that patient, usually. And they may call at 2 a.m., there's a pressure emergency. You have to follow them up again every 6 months for year after year. So it's a very different way to manage a practice. And I think there are maybe some analogous concerns here in India. As I understand, I think 6 months ago, the government started a program to train more and more surgeons in how to diagnose glaucoma and perform trabeculectomies. And as surgeons who haven't traditionally done those start doing those, the issue of the patient follow-up and availability to the patient is going to be an issue in how to manage the practice. The doctors like to see what their colleagues think of new equipment. This is the Zepto from Minosis. I say it's being marketed here at the show. And in the US, only 3% of surgeons are looking at that as a viable piece of equipment. Of course, in the US, everybody's using phaco, and there are a lot of femto machines out there. If we get to femto, femto laser assisted cataract surgery in the US, this is a year-old slide, but follows a 4-year trend. A lot of interest at first. It's pretty much frozen. Now at that level, the last slide, still about 50% of surgeons, of cataract surgeons, have femto machines, but only about 10% of cataract surgeries are performed with these machines. Some surgeons do a lot, most do very few. So it's really a machine people are buying for kind of marketing purposes and prestige, rather than for actual heavy use. This from the fourth quarter of 2017, where we asked surgeons to rank the effectiveness of different MIGS devices. The iStent has been out for 6 years in the US. You see people are very interested in the CyPass as potentially more effective in glaucoma. As I mentioned, people use it to benchmark with the business of their colleagues. What we do with people who take surveys, anyone who takes a survey gets back the results, the kind of global results of that survey. And in this case with India, they'll also get back results from the US, so you can compare with colleagues in India or in the US. But in knowing kind of the differences, having the data for the differences between the two also helps evaluate a lot of medical journal articles or presentations at conferences where they talk about the standard of care, where the standard of care is what is used in the US, and it may not apply here in India. This slide was out of order, actually. If you go back to the slide on MIGS, and we talked about all the people considering doing MIGS in the US, and this kind of gets to the point of the practice management. Because in the US, 69% of cataract surgeons, 56% of glaucoma surgeons are in solo practices. And so particularly for the cataract surgeons, they're at 69% in solo practices. If they start doing glaucoma, that's a big issue. Who's doing that follow-up in glaucoma? And if maybe, hey, they have relations with a glaucoma specialist they can refer a person to after the surgery. But we're doing hundreds of thousands of these MIGS operations a year. After a while, that glaucoma specialist might get full and not take any more. So that's the issue there. And of course, it's relevant to the earlier discussion here on solo versus group practice, because you don't really have the same issue with patient management in a group practice if it's a multi-specialty group practice. You do the surgery, you probably have involved the glaucoma specialist before you do the surgery with the patient, and the practice as a whole can follow up that patient. We looked at the trends in practice plans in the US. As you see, whether you're new in group practice, you're going to sell, you're going to join others. And even though, as you saw from the last slide, most doctors in the US are in private practice, they're looking for partners. And that's, I guess, one way to grow. One way to get a group practice is to grow it yourself, starting from a solo practice, and then bring in partners. So our survey, I invite you all to fill it out, to participate with us. It's an online survey at practicescope.com/India, and that's practice-scope. I think I made a mistake earlier telling somebody I left out the hyphen. So remember, it's practice-scope.com/India. And this is kind of the landing page, or well, I guess, let me back. This will look like when you go to the website, you'll land on that page, and you register with your name and email. It is mobile friendly. You can do it from your phone. It's treed. So when you tell the survey what kind of ophthalmologist you are, whether it's a general or a subspecialist such as cataract or refractive or retina or glaucoma, it'll direct you to questions related to that subspecialty. The information you supply is confidential. All the data is de-identified. We verify that people who answer the survey are ophthalmologists or practice administrators. And again, its focus is on practice patterns. So number of patients you have, the diagnoses you make, the equipment or medicines you use, whether you're using medicines or surgery in response to different diagnoses. So thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to talk about this here, and I want to thank the people at my company who have prepared all this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peters. Thank you so much. Kathleen would like to say something about the scenario which he said.
Oh, I was just going to ask a quick question. Do you have a feel for what percentage, Peter, of cataract surgeries or glaucoma surgeries are done in solo versus group practice as far as volume goes? I know those numbers exist, but you may not have them on the top of your
Yeah,
head.
I don't have them off the top of my head. We do that. We have the solo practices, we group practices, and then we have, I think, kind of 4 segments of volume that people say, oh, I do maybe 25 a week or less, or 26 to 50, or 50 to 100 and over 100.
Any other questions from the audience? I just have one question that there are a lot of regulations which your health system puts into your practice. So how does your decisions about all this go? Like every time there is a fresh regulation, whether you can use a drug, you cannot use the drug, and the financials and the insurance. So, is it different for solo practice and group practice?
The regulations is what you can use or not? No, I don't believe so. They have, and the, nowadays, and I'm sure Dr. Hare will agree, a lot of the regulations on what you can use or not use are actually coming from insurance companies, not from the government. They usually tell you what you can use first, and if that doesn't work, then you can go on and use something else. And there's paperwork and documentation you have to do to explain why you're going to move on to something else. Yes, but it's the same rules whether it's a solo practice or a group practice.
I just want to encourage everybody to get online and enter data, because that data, market scope data in the U.S., we use that to answer so many questions. It's such a great service and resource for us. And so that, along with that loose benchmarking, really can answer so many complicated practice management type questions that give you ideas about how to move forward in the future.
Yeah, certainly. Any of you have been to the AAO in the U.S. or the ESCRS in Europe have seen slides quoting market scope data, probably several times during any meeting. And I've actually seen a few of the slides quoting market scope data here at the AIOC. So it is something doctors use in planning, the future of their own practices.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker is going to be Dr. Adiyar, and he's going to be speaking on designing a tertiary eye center, the Aravind Chennai experience. So we had the opportunity of going to the center, and it's so beautifully made, and it's really modern, I would say, and the whole aspect was very, very nice. So we will have him tell us more about it.
So good morning. I'm here in place of Dr. Aravind, who is our Chief Medical Officer in the Chennai Hospital. This is the new building in Chennai. It has got about 8 floors, with 2 floors in the basement for car parking, and we also have a facility for the accommodation. So actually, if you look at it, it was not planned in Chennai, this particular hospital. It was supposed to come up in Tirupati. Because Tirupati, the Devasthanam had actually offered us land, about 6 to 7 acres of land at that point of time, and we had all the plans. But somehow, because the reason being, we are getting close to about 20,000 outpatients from those districts of South Andhra Pradesh and also from Tirupur, Chittoor, that area. And as you can see here, a large number of these patients were also poor patients, free patients, who are coming for retinal surgery, glaucoma surgery, which they were not able to get it done either in Bangalore or Hyderabad or Chennai. They all used to travel to Madurai. And we used to have a large number of patients. Today, this number has gone up to close to about 14,000 surgeries. We do all procedures including. And we tried for about 5-6 years, and then we are not able to get any land because a lot of land either belongs to Devasthanam or to some of the mutt, and it was quite difficult. And again, to transact on transparently for buying these lands were also very difficult there. So we had to give up, and the other alternative we looked at was Chennai. So where the patients need not come all the way up to Madurai, they can all come to Chennai and then have it done. And after that is the time about 2011 and 12, we looked for some site. We were looking for about 5 to 10 acres of land, which was not possible within the city limits. So we were looking outside the metropolitan area. And here again, the similar challenges what we faced in Tirupati and all of us we face in India were also there. But luckily, fortunately, we were able to get some land from an NRI who was willing for a very transparent transactions. And this place is located about 20 kilometers from the center of Chennai city. It's quite far away. It's not within the corporation area. And again, fortunately, this place is on a highway, on the Transap, kind of a central point, from 2 or 3 districts and also for Andhra Pradesh. So in that way, it was a very good location. So the water, all that were very favorable for this place. And water is a very important thing if you have to run a service facility like that. So all that was available. So we looked at that place. Then the question of how much to build in that area. Then we looked at what are the hospitals. So 3 major hospitals like Madurai, Coimbatore, Pondicherry. So like Madurai had about 270,000 square feet, and we are serving about roughly about 2,500 outpatients and doing about 500 procedures. Coimbatore, the facility we have here has got about 170,000 square feet. It sees about 1,700 outpatients and 350 procedures. Pondicherry is much larger. Still, the good thing about Pondicherry, still we have space to expand, whereas Coimbatore, it's really packed, and it's a lot of issues related to the service delivery. Patients are very, very unhappy with the services we deliver, the main reason being the space. So we had a lot of discussions. We thought, we should come up somewhere like Madurai, seeing about 2,500, 3,000 patients, maybe like 15, 20 years time, and we'll have about 300 to 400 surgeries. Per day. This is outpatients per day. Yeah. And again, the accommodation is a big challenge. So again, we decided to build a large number. Actually, we have built about 64 apartments and have facilities for about 600 nurses to stay, and about another about 40 to 50 the residents or postgraduates can say. So here we had an offer from one of our friends in US, based a consultancy firm. About 3 architects also offered their time. So taking this an opportunity to design a better building, we visited Dr. Aravind, our architect from here in Pondicherry, and the architects from America. They all visited the hospitals in Stanford and the Kaiser Hospital, and we also had visited a hospital in Singapore. This was very impressive, this building, and then based on what we saw in Singapore, we had designed 2 separate buildings, one building, and each building which will have each floor area of about 20,000 square feet, and which will be connected. The 2 buildings will be connected. So this is how the whole thing was planned. And we also wanted to not only want to have a kind of a very modern structure, but also a very functional structure. So we tried to look at our patient flow so that we can build it to maintain the efficiency and friendliness for the patient. At the same time, we wanted to be modern but not very extravagant. So we have tried to take all that. We also tried to make it an energy efficient facility. I'll just discuss that.
And again, based on our culture and values, we want to have facilities both for paying patients and free patients. And we also wanted to make the facility friendly for the people with the low vision, blind, handicapped. And we also want to create a kind of a transparency and clarity for the patients. And again, to ensure we wanted to use all the technology. And again, as we expand, we should be able to also grow the building. We should be able to use it. And in that way, we also segregated the spaces in different floors so that whenever we grow, we'll be able to use that space. We have tried to done everything to conserve water. We have put solar panels. We have put water recycling plants. And enough space were given for a garden. And also we have tried to comply with all the statutory requirements. So based on whatever we've learned from other hospitals, we have separate entrances for both paying and free patients. But at the same time, even though it was a separate outpatient facility, we have the same common facility for specialty clinics, for the investigations, and also for the operating rooms. Operating rooms are the common for both paying and free patients, even though the outpatients are separated. We have separate OT for all specialty surgeries, and we also try to centralize all the investigations going forward. And the specialized units, initially there was a plan, right, to separate, all our hospitals have a comprehensive clinic separately, specialty clinics separately. But here in Chennai, keeping the volumes and also the patient expectations, we have tried to combine the specialty clinics also with the regular general clinics. So we have created what is called as a comprehensive ophthalmology units, where we have the glaucoma specialist, cornea person, retina, all sitting in the same place with the equipments, whatever related necessary equipments. And we also have tried to bring in the optical shops, medical shops, cash counters, counseling units, also very close to these units. And we had a simple inauguration on 30th September 2017. And this is the kind of the infrastructure what we have. The hospital, even though it's got about 500,000 square feet, about 120,000 square feet is for the parking. So this also have to keep in mind the regulatory requirement. For the amount of space you build, you also have to provide certain amount of area for the car parking. So, and again for the residential, for the doctors, postgraduates, we have again created about 200,000 square feet space. And if you see the hospital clinical space, maybe about 360 or 370,000. We also put the solar panels, and we have a DWAT system where we'll be able to completely use every water. They call it the gray, black water, the sewage, everything can be recycled and can be reused in the building. The water need not go out of the facility. And we also have RO water, escalators also we have put. Just to give you an idea about this is a car parking, I'll just take you through the building. This is the basement. And in the hospital, in the ground floor, we have put all the support services like admin office, restaurant, conference halls, paying registration, optical, pharmacy, except the free hospital outpatient. Rest are all non-clinical services. On the first floor, we have created 3 comprehensive outpatient clinics and the specialty clinics. And we have kept the second, third floor completely empty. Each one of that is like about 40,000 square feet. The 4th floor, we have all the daycare rooms, patient waiting rooms, about 20 operation theaters. And 5th to 8th floor, we have the outpatients. So earlier, the buildings used to be smaller for the free patient, but now we have also moved on towards providing the beds as per the NABH norms for the free patient, and those come from the camp. And that is what we had to add about 4 floors, or close to about 150,000 square feet for this, which we could have done with half the space earlier. And we are looking at this as a service area, which are very close to Chennai. And again, being closer to Andhra Pradesh, we should be able to get some patients. And again, Chennai, being a medical hub, gets the patients from all over the country and also outside. I mean, if we really do well, if we give a good quality, about 30 to 40% of the patients should come from outside of Tamil Nadu. And this is just, with this introduction, I'll just give you, this is what the ground floor with a large portico, and this is the entrance. This is like a paying registration. There's a waiting area for the outpatients, inpatients. And there is we've got a nice inner courtyard, which is well covered and which you can use for any kind of functions. And we have a meditation room where the relics of Sri Aurobindo is placed. And then the optical shop, medical shop, all these, the restaurant, everything is on the ground floor, all these support things. And there is outside, the patients can access the free hospital separately. There's a separate way wherein the patients can go. There is, as you can see, we have created a ramp for the people who are disabled. And this is like a free OPD. This again is air conditioned. And with all the facilities, about 6,000 square feet of outpatient facility we have given for the thing. Similar also is the paying patients. Each of the units is like 2,500 square feet. It can have about 5 doctors, about 5 refractionists, and about 2 or 3 rooms for the investigations. This is the operation theatre. This is a central bay, and you can see all this, about 3 operating rooms on either side. There are 6 theatres. In one bay, we have about 4 bays like this. And peripheral to this, there is another corridor, which is a sterile corridor, which is connected to the central sterile department. So the instruments all unsterile will come through this way and go to the sterilization area, and then all once they sterilize, you can see the glass behind that there is a corridor through which it comes to the operating room. So this is the inner part of the operating room. Still, we have 1 doctor, but with 2 tables, we use it. And this is the accommodation for the patient. This is the staff quarters. This is for nurses' quarters. So what we have tried to do is we have taken the principles, all the cultural values of the organization, and put that in place to create a modern structure that will probably, we don't have to look at building new structures for the next maybe like 10, 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arvind. You really making things so beautiful. And what surprises me is still you keep the cost so down, which probably you will not reveal. How can you manage the costing of these patients? With this kind of facilities, I think the cost... Wonderful. Wonderful. 3 cheers. Please give him a big hand. Yeah, absolutely. So, would you like to reveal how do you keep the cost down? I think that's something which...
I think it's going to be a very long answer, but I think fundamentally it is helped by scale and having and also keeping our HR costs really low, because in any hospital, the human resource cost will be about 50-60%. And ours is hovering around 30-35%. So I think that is really fundamental to getting your costs down.
I think I'm sure Venkat Swami is blessing us from up top somewhere.
That too, good mission.
That's, yes, very good mission. Who is the next person to come?
Our next speaker is Dr. Vasavra, Chair, Technology versus Investments.
Very good morning. After such awe-inspiring talks, I almost feel embarrassed to present this talk. I think time has come that people have started seeing differences. I mean, we like 2 people getting their hair cut. There's nothing wrong in either of. But still, you always dream that if you are sitting here, you'll someday end up here. So I think modernization has changed our aspirations in every field of life, and it's not just related to our profession. Each one of us wants to move on, move to the next generation of whatever we are using, whether it may be a bike, your mobile phone, your car, your house. So all of us always have that urge or that eagerness to keep upgrading in whatever field of life that we may be, and our profession being ophthalmology goes out to be no different. With the plethora of, if you just visit the trade, there is probably, even if you have, probably more than $1 zillion, you may still fall short of everything that you can buy in ophthalmology right now. And that brings us to the role of technology in ophthalmology in the current scenario. So until when I started MBBS, people used to talk about that, be careful in selecting radiology because it's an extremely investment heavy branch. You need these machines, crores, etc., etc. But I think now the trend of ophthalmology is technology and investment in ophthalmology is almost at par as radiology, or even more now. I think it's one of the most rapidly advancing branch of medicine. And like I said, you probably need not millions, but now zillions of dollars to be, right up there with all the technology that is available. Two fundamental questions that we need to answer is how does technology play a role in our profession? So I think we can differentiate that into two parts. First is how it helps us scientifically as clinicians, as scientists, and what are the other pros and cons or other benefits or demerits otherwise of technology. When we think of technology, the only thing that comes to mind is probably a machine or a diagnostic equipment, but remember, it's not just the diagnostic or the surgical instrument. Equipments also mean your microscope, your table, your autoclave, your recording system, so on and so forth. So we need to keep in mind that technology is moving forward in everything. Like if we look back at our own video camera recordings just 5 years back, and now we see some people showing ultra high resolution or 4K videos, you feel, that you're so left behind, your videos are so poor in quality. So when we talk about technology, technology is evolving in all branches right from your OT setup, your microscope to your machines. And an important part that people tend to neglect is technology in your anesthesiology department. And particularly if you want to provide good topical anesthesia services, you need good anesthesiologists. And if you are in, doing pediatric cataracts or children, younger people under general anesthesia, you need all the highest possible safety mechanisms even for this, because one serious life problem occurring in your hospital, one is enough to ruin your entire career. And of course, in our own surgical field, things are moving on from more and more sophistication, fluidics, femtoseconds, so on and so forth. So let's take into account how technology can help us scientifically. And let's take first the role of improved diagnostics. I'm just using this OCT as an example, but there are many such examples. So how has, for example, OCT changed our entire practice? So the day we incorporated OCT as a pre-operative armamentarium in all cataract surgeries, we found that in patients who were diagnosed to have normal fundus on a 90D by a retinal surgeon, out of that 7% turned out to be ERMs, 4 had about RP irregularity, and so on and so forth. So this helped us screen our patients better, choose our patients better, and therefore a big thumbs up to this technology of OCT. Similarly, when we come to operating, how has technology changed or evolved as far as our operating systems go? So now we have better machines, better viscose surgical devices, and better instruments to help us refine our already good clinical outcomes. So you have good higher end machines which help you keep your corneas clear on day 1, day 2, and you have further and further automation in surgery, like you have robotic surgeries in other fields. We are moving a step closer to reducing the human factor in surgery with the introduction of automated systems like the femtosecond. And to just give an example of how this has helped surgically in our own practice, we just reviewed our data of manual capsulorhexis versus femtocapsulorhexis, and we divided all the cases into cases done by our chief surgeon, where 97 to 99% could achieve a good complete circular rhexis of an appropriate size. The junior consultants could do that in 93% cases, but when we reviewed femto cases, it was 100%. So I think this is, once again, if we look at intraoperative, like Diagnostics, OCT a thumbs up. Similarly, technology is helping us here to achieve more consistent results. When we move on otherwise, so how does technology help us in other fields apart from strictly talking about scientific merits? First is you get a personal satisfaction that you are moving ahead with time. Like I said, if I'm using an iPhone 5 still and my colleague is using an iPhone 10, you always feel you're being left out. You're still not able to pay your EMI of iPhone 5. So, it gives a personal satisfaction that you are moving ahead with time. You are at par with anyone else in the world. You don't need to be ashamed that I'm practicing in Ahmedabad and not in Mumbai or Bangalore or USA somewhere. So it gives you a personal satisfaction. And of course, the more technology you have, you can use at times, not unethically, but even ethically, to market or to promote your practices, that you are a practice that is moving ahead with time. You are offering what is there, what is cutting edge in the current practice. So we must keep this fundamental point in mind, that technology is something that we need to use to our advantage and to the patient's advantage. So like I said, the second point otherwise comes second, and the science or the patient outcome or advantage comes first. There's always an argument that patients are always happy with my phaco. Why do I need to move on to femto? And they ask, particularly me, that we used to see your dad operating even great with the Laureate, and now you're talking about Centurion. But I tell them that his patients and his juniors were looking at awe with him even when he was doing intra-cap or extra-cap. So happiness and moving on is something very different. And with times, with increasing awareness, like has been talked in the previous talks, the demand of the day is increasing. So it's the community model is an excellent model, but apart from the community model, also there is a huge chunk of urban and semi-urban population for whom just having a vision or restoring vision is not enough. And all of us in all fields of life now don't like to compromise in anything. Particularly if you have money, you feel if I have the money, I should have the best possible thing that can be done in this field. And therefore, patients have started becoming an important influencing force in deciding, and for us almost it acts like a pressure on us that we have to keep moving forward unless we are going to keep using the patient force. And therefore, we must not be satisfied with just the good, but try to move on to the better and the best. But of course, this question comes, how much is too much? And India is a country of great divide with two extremes. And there is this constant balancing act as to how much investment is reasonable or how much is something that can be considered safely. And for that, I think every practice, depending on the region where they are practicing, depending whether they are solo, group, family practice, corporate, etc., need to work out an economics based on what they feel comfortable from running their own practice, their own economics, and keeping in mind their long-term future. Because however much we may say good things, bad things about technology, the top line and the bottom line is something that is going to define most practices and most decisions that we take. As has been highlighted very, very nicely in all the previous talks, including Dr. Lalit Verma's talks, that time has come that with so much increasing technology, it's almost impossible for an individual practitioner to keep moving ahead. And therefore, joining hands is something that all of us must keep in mind, that we may share operating theaters or share a diagnostic facility, because our priority has to be on the highest possible quality care, and value of whatever we do has to be more important, has to be given slightly more importance than the actual price of buying. So while evaluating a technology, look at the pros and cons of the technology first before asking how expensive or how inexpensive it is. And there are, believe me, there are ways, if you believe in the technology, if you think it's helping you, there are ways to counsel and to justify your fees. And there are enough number of patients in India who can who cannot afford anything and who can afford everything. So there is enough for everyone to be happy about. It's a dream for the future to have equitable care for all, and Arvind, Shankar Netralaya, LVPI are glorious, glorious examples of how that can be achieved, but that may not be possible for all. A word of caution that just because we are investing so much, there is always a pressure of recovering money, of recovering that instrument, and we must never compromise on the ethical practices or the principles that we have based on our practice. And of course, we have to be careful of not putting all our eggs in the same basket. So I think if I would want to summarize the talk of technology in ophthalmology, I would say that we must keep a positive mindset towards technology. Not everything that comes new is useful. There have been times where we've almost felt cheated that, you know, I spent so much on this and after 6 months, you feel like throwing it away in the dustbin. But if you get bogged down by 1 or 2 bad experiences, you'll never move ahead or you'll never move with time. So we must always keep a positive mindset as far as technology goes, always be looking to progress. It may not always be possible to progress. For example, I just recently bought a LensStar and now there is IOL Master 700. I can't immediately change that in 6 months. But that should be my next target, you know, that if I want to improve my patient outcomes even further, that's where I want to be. So we want to be positive about technology. We want to be looking forward to accepting new technology. But like I said, it will vary from practice to practice and your practice preference as to how much investment is safe and how much is not safe. That's an answer. That's a question I think that every practice will have to answer themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vasavada. I just have one question for you that whenever you are upgrading yourself, how much the technology you're selling it to the patient or how much you're using it for the scientific reasons? Like I have seen that excellent, phaco surgeons like your dad and all have shifted to femto.
Correct.
And then the cost to the patient, cost to the whole system goes up.
Absolutely.
Each patient, if he's going to pay you 25,000-30,000 extra just to get a round access.
Correct.
So how do we justify this in practice?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. So I would like to answer that in 2 parts. So first is that whenever, like I mentioned, first let's leave the finance apart. And first is, do you think this is useful? What we have found in our practice, taking the example of femto, we were coming new into practice. For probably most of the stalwarts sitting here, it would not matter what case, what machine, what microscope they are operating on. But when we are growing in our practice, the confidence that it started giving us, that no matter what the case is, I can handle that. So that confidence, there is no economic mathematics into that confidence translation. And that has, really helped us, all of us who are below dad in the institute, to grow significantly in our practice and in our confidence. So one is that is something that we cannot put a price tag on or a price stamp on. The second is, obviously there is a cost issue, and what we have found very useful in our practice is we've never ever put up that we have bought this new machine, this is the latest machine, etc. So we offer femto to all our patients and we tell them that this is something that we find it is safer. It's like having an extra airbag or an extra higher insurance. If money is an issue, probably it will not matter whether you get this done or that done. But if that extra money doesn't pinch you, if money was not an issue, we would be doing it for all. So like I said, there are enough people who still trust us and believe us, and that's how we find it very useful.
Great. Mohan, would you like to say something on this?
I think the main factor is the cost as far as the femto technology is concerned. So if you balance, if you're able to give phaco and femto on the same platform, in the sense that cost-wise, I think femto will be the way forward, at least in the future, because femto is an evolving technology.
True.
It is going to become better and better. The machines are going to become less costly in the future as well. And it is going to be available for everyone. That's the way forward.
Perfect.
Like when we started the ECC, SIC,
I know, that's perfect. We are reaching the time, like, we have any? Yeah, one more speaker.
We just have to be very brief also. beginner's perspective of managing an eye care center.
So at the outset, I'd like to begin by thanking Sir and Madam for having me as part of this course. It's an honor to be talking in front of such stalwarts. And I'll just give my view on, as a beginner, about setting up and then managing your eye care center. I know I don't see too many beginners in this hall right now, but then I think one of the major thought process which anyone has.
Is there anyone else who has to present something today? You have.
So I think anyone who, the major thought process which any young surgeon has when they finish their education is how do they go about taking the next step and how do we move forward. I think choosing the right path itself is the initial challenge. Before we delve into the business of ophthalmology about choosing whether you're going to an institution or a private practice, I think the first question which every young doctor must ask themselves is, are we adequately trained? Do we have, and at this day, in this day and time, in our generation at least, I think a fellowship training is almost invaluable. Some form of specialty training is extremely necessary to differentiate ourselves from our neighbors. Next comes, where do I settle down? Do I settle down in a big city or a small town? I think a number of our friends are living examples of this, wherein, moving from immediate post-fellowship, they start thinking, I'm from Bombay or Delhi. Now, when I go back to Bombay or Delhi, how do I actually set up my own practice when there is a skilled and trained ophthalmologist in every other street corner? I think it is in both their personal interest as well as the interest of the country as a whole for them to start looking at locations away from the metropolitan cities, moving into smaller towns where still the opportunity exists. And when I say opportunity, it doesn't mean you have to dream small. Some of the greatest institutions of our time, be it Madurai, Chitrakoot, Barakpur, have all come from the smallest towns or the smaller towns of our country and have grown into one of the largest success stories in the world. The next is also important for us to now recognize that as a young ophthalmologist, that ophthalmology is not equivalent to cataract surgery. Yes, cataract surgery is an integral part of and probably will be your bread and butter. But for us to differentiate ourselves and to move forward and as a beginner to strive in this world, even be it in a smaller town or a bigger city, we have to differentiate ourselves. We have to create our own identity amidst the numerous options which are available in whichever town or city you're practicing in. This can be done by probably your specialty experience in giving rise to surgeries which are low cost, be it a keratoprosthesis or a DMEC. The investment in actually doing these surgeries is almost next to nothing. It is only the skill that you have acquired in your training which helps you do these particular surgeries. And truly, it is not these surgeries which is actually going to bring in your revenue. You could probably even do these treatments free of cost for patients who really can't afford it. But some of these surgeries are the ones which are probably going to bring you back many more patients through word of mouth, where patients who've had no other options and have been turned away in many smaller centers, and they come to you and you give them that quality of care, will definitely bring in more patients to you. It's not just about learning and knowing these surgeries and sitting in one place, but as a beginner, going out, meeting several other doctors personally, and creating a referral bastion for yourself, wherein those doctors who may be routinely doing cataract surgeries by themselves, but would dearly love to have a corneal or a retinal surgeon who can take care of the issues which they see in their own day-to-day practice. And just not stops with doctors. Holding small group meetings, it could be as simple as a Lions Club, Rotary Club, but going there and expressing what you have come to this town to deliver is exceedingly important for any junior surgeon. Reaching out to the community cannot be overemphasized, and it is important for every aspiring young surgeon to know that community service is not just restricted to large NGOs or large institutions, but it just requires a dedicated 3 to 4 member team who can actually go out in the field, create awareness, help out the people, conduct screening camps, you could conduct low-cost free surgeries yourself, and it is through this awareness in the community which will actually help your own practice grow. And I think over the years, Arvind Eye Hospital time and again has shown that example of actually going out into the community, which really helps them grow in each individual place. But most important for any beginning surgeon is to getting their own team right. From the front desk staff to optometrists to counselors to patient care coordinators, public relation, people would think, a beginning surgeon would think that probably having all these bifurcations, such a structure in his organization is probably not as important. But I think that's the most important in today's world. Very large institutions which have 10 to 20,000 employees under them can afford a large degree of attrition. But then a small beginning surgeon who's setting up a practice really needs a core team in place. And having this core team, attrition could be the death knell for such a private practitioner. It's important that we train that core team well, pay them well, keep them happy, and keep them motivated so that they maintain the ethos and pathos which you want to instill within them, within your own institute, and move forward with yourself. I truly believe there is no replacement for skilled personnel at various fronts. A skilled optometrist can take up the role of both an optometrist who's doing a simple vision refraction, doing a slit lamp examination, and also acting as a counselor. It is important to remember when the patient is still in an optometrist's room or in the doctor's room, they still continue to be a patient. But once you just tell the patient, go to the counselor, and there they sit down with a chart and all the packages and the prices, they stop being a patient but become more of a customer. And it is very difficult at that time to actually be talking the benefits of, let's say, technology, technique vis-a-vis the price. The patient is certainly more receptive within the own confines of an optometrist's cabin or a doctor's room. And again, effective counseling and communication by use of video aids, really enhancing patient experience at every front, making sure, especially in early practice, for them to feel that they should choose you over multiple other options which are available in your town. Continuous feedback collection from these patients. Every third, fourth patient in a small patient, this can be given a small printout right at the very beginning and asked to fill up before they leave the hospital and give it to the receptionist when they're leaving the hospital. This acts as a great tool in really knowing, in looking inwardly at ourselves to see where we can improve ourselves, how we can improve patient experience. Handling dissatisfied patients is exceedingly important. Spending enough chair time, probably much more chair time with a dissatisfied patient really goes a long way. If you handle a complication well, this patient becomes a patient for you for life, even, and would probably end up referring many more patients than a patient who really had a good outcome. And as Shail alluded to earlier, it's exceedingly important that we maintain this balance of price versus value. And it's really important that we don't get sucked into, especially in an early practice, even in a small to mid-sized town, of that kind of technology or kind of fanfare which comes along with these various multinational companies. It's important that we balance what we are going to provide to the patient with what we have in our hands. We have various multitude of Indian options, both in equipment, lenses, everything, which offer world-class quality at a much more affordable price. And this can easily be transmitted to our patients. Now is the day of any digital era. Even in a small town, if right from an auto driver to the executive in a building has access to a smartphone, everyone has access to 3G. And digital marketing is probably one of the easiest and the best ways to reach out to the masses. Right from the very beginning, for any small hospital, it's important they adapt to these small changes in technology. have an appropriate EMR, appropriate documentation right from the very beginning, so that they can have these multiple visits of patient care, which really enhances the quality of care delivery to our patients. And I think at the end of the day, it's really important that we keep looking at ourselves to keep improving upon what we are doing. I think our biggest competition and comparison is our own individual self, and that is how I think as each individual young practitioner, we can grow in our practice. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amurthy. Now, can I call your, what's? Naugali, yes. Shirish is there. Shirish is going to tell us about how to plan your own travels online, and probably that will be the last speaker, and then we'll have one or two questions, and then we can close this session. I'm sorry we are stretching, but you can go ahead, Shirish.
This talk is a bit offbeat to ophthalmology, but non-academic, but it may help you because we travel a lot for leisure as well as academic purpose. So when we go for leisure tours, we think of appointing some tourist company and all, where we end up paying extra more, and still we may not get satisfaction. So why not plan our own tour by sitting in our own office? This talk will be pertinent to mainly to international travel. Now, what do you need? You need a good internet connection, computer, laptop, mobile, net banking, international credit card, world map, and travel applications on your mobile. And mainly, you should have some interest, and you should be able to spend some time over it. First, you decide what you want to experience: nature, tranquil, beach vacation, shopping, pilgrimage, spiritual, or whether you want to experience nightlife. There are various portals on internet, cleartrip.com, yatra.com. Documents what you need: passport, visa, air ticket, and travel insurance. Air tickets you can book on portals like Railtrip, then Go Ibibo. This is what you have to do. Origin and destination, plus dates you have to put. Then you will get complete list of flights available. Select which is convenient to you, and you pay it online. Air tickets, you compare fares on various travel ports. Always better to book directly on airlines website rather than these other portals. Plan and book well in advance for cheaper tickets. Select your seat while booking the tickets. Book your meal requirement in advance. Special meals are available for whatever you need. Enjoy the complimentary cocktails. For a visa, there are pre-departure visa, and some of the there are about 60 countries where Indian passport holders they do not require visa, or they get visa on arrival. Travel insurance is a must, whether you are going for 1 day or 1 month or 10 days. Travel insurance should be there. For travel insurance, what you do, you can do online. For you need scanned copies of passport, air tickets, visa. You can pay online with net banking or credit and debit card, and within half an hour you will get your insurance done. There are types of insurance: gold and silver. Premium is not much, but it covers flight delays, flight cancellations, loss of luggage, accidental injuries, accidental death, and hospitalization. Hotel booking also you can do online. I will just go fast through these slides. How to book the hotels directly from the hotel's website? They are cheaper. Book hotels in the center of the city, because you will save much on travels from hotel to city. Do's and don'ts: always travel light. Carry your own medicines in extra stocks along with doctor's prescription. For few medicines, doctor's prescription is a must. Carry international debit card or credit card, travel cards. Carry minimum cash. Xerox copies of passports, air tickets, and travel insurance. While going for sightseeing, carry a visiting card of your hotel. In case if you get lost in a country where language barrier is there, it's very easy to get back to your hotel. You should obey their local cultures, laws, and regulations. If available, book such a flight that you will reach to your destination during a daytime. Find mode of local transportation in the country where you are visiting. main things, do not swim in the unknown waters. Whatever expert swimmer you are, do not venture out in the unknown areas, especially at night. Nightmares, what you can lose your foreign currency, you can lose your luggage. Losing passport is the worst nightmare what you can have. If you lose it, immediately contact the Indian embassy in that country. Domestic travel I will skip. Now solo travel, traveling all alone is a new concept in India, but it's very common in Western countries. Most of the times I travel alone, and I met so many people who travel on their own alone. It's rejuvenating to travel alone without strings attached. Solo travel, safe countries for solo travel are most European countries, Canada, USA, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Caribbean countries. Unsafe countries for solo travel are African countries, South America, for example. Thank you very much. Actually, I wanted to be a little bit distinguished because of time. I cut it down. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I am really thankful to all those who are still here in the hall. And I especially thank David for your visit. Wish you a wonderful journey back home. I hope you travel solo. Thank you so much. Once again, especially to the Arvind group, I am really indebted to them. Because my son is taking training under your place.
ഒരു കുറച്ചൊക്കെ ഒരു 25 ലിമിറ്റ് ഉണ്ട് 5 കൊല്ലം കഴിയുമ്പോൾ താങ്കൾ മാറും